Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Miller, your host. Have you thought about how to approach sustainability in a holistic way? Well, our guest today is going to unpack that, and along with a lot of other items, we have Geraldine Gilbert. She is the food transition lead for Forum for the Future. Welcome to the show, Geraldine.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Forum for the Future may not be a term, organization that our audience is familiar with. Could you share with us what you do?
Yes, of course. So we're an international nonprofit. We're almost 30 years old. We were originally founded in the UK, but we now have teams in North America, UK, Europe, Mumbai for India, and Singapore for Southeast Asia. And we have a charitable mission, which is to accelerate the transition to a more just and regenerative future.
Yeah, that's exciting, and the whole nonprofit focus, and you've gone worldwide essentially. So that's very exciting. Now, how are you how are you going about accomplishing this goal?
Yeah, it's a lofty ambition, and we're only one
Yes, it is.
organization. So we're about 80 people across those four geographical regions, and we focus on three major transitions which are happening in the world anyway and have game-changing potential for the challenges that the world faces. One is the future of energy, one is the purpose of business in economy and the society, and one is the future of food and the food transition that is playing out, and that is the work that I'm focused on.
Yeah. And so you help companies and organizations figure out, within these three pillars, I guess I'll call them, what actions they can take, or giving education information. I mean, is that what the forum does?
So we sit within those three areas, and we work, I'd say, in two main ways in all of those. So one is through one-to-one partnerships with ambitious organizations, and we are often a kind of ambitious expert thought partner, a critical friend. We design and run strategy processes, all sorts of kind of expert one-to-one support to our partner organizations to help them in their change journey and with their progress. And the other thing that we do is design and run pre-competitive collaborations. So we might bring together a whole sector or a whole value chain or various different stakeholders around a particular challenge or sustainability issue or opportunity, and help them to work together to figure it out together.
Oh, so like in that, so the one-on-one is very straightforward, where you can partner with organizations to help them move along on the mission. But then the other one, it sounds more kind of like a mastermind idea, where you're bringing together like organizations that are facing similar challenges because of whatever vertical they might be in, or where they are placed in the business, and to share best practices and generate ideas. Is that what I'm understanding?
So the collaborations really are born of the fact that so many, and in fact increasingly, the sustainability challenges and opportunities that we face can't be solved by one organization alone, no matter how influential or ambitious they might be. And so increasingly over the years, we have found that we needed to bring our partners together to tackle some of these as a group rather than individually. So the collaborations can be quite small. They can be just a few organizations sharing learning or developing a useful toolkit together or something like that, through to like 100 organizations. For example, our Growing Our Future US collaboration on scaling regenerative agriculture, food and farming in the US, brings together, has convened dozens, if not hundreds, of organizations involved in scaling regenerative food and farming. And then we've brought them together in various ways to help them progress collectively and identify where their work was well aligned, where there might be gaps that they could tackle in a new way. And so it's really about that kind of pre-competitive shared challenges and opportunities. And we're really expert at convening people to help them to figure that out.
Yeah, like the expert facilitator idea, where you're bringing them together. You've got some background expertise in systems and tools and things like that, I'm assuming, maybe, and help them focus their thinking, because you're very future focused.
Yes. So clues in the name, Forum for the Future. Our biggest strengths really lie in that systemic approach. So if you like, we're not a think tank and we're not on the ground implementers. We sit in the middle there and we bring expertise in terms of applied systems change tools. So these challenges and opportunities around the future of food and more broadly are shared, and they are collective challenges, and they're often pre-competitive. So we need to always look at the bigger picture. So we bring applied systems change tools that can really do that and get to root causes and so on. And we also bring expertise in applied futures tools. So things like, well, supporting more long-term thinking, which is what's needed to make better decisions right now. So anything from horizon scanning, kind of sense making of all the innovation that we're seeing, where is it taking us, to various practical tools and frameworks that help people to think more long-term in a way that generates better decisions now. So between that systems change, expertise and the futures and long-term thinking, we can bring that to inform the design of the collaborations to really make sure that the way that then these groups of stakeholders go about trying to act for progress is taking into account the longer-term future, the bigger picture, so that they really make the right decisions now.
Yeah, and I really like the pre-competitive nature of a lot of this, where because I think that a lot of food industry companies are so busy taking care of today and what's happening now that you're bringing in, well, okay, but here as an industries and as this part of the industry is what we need to look at for the future. And here's some ways to do that and some tools to use. So you're bringing that kind of education and maybe exposure to tools and systems that they might not have been exposed to so far or don't know how to implement or use. And that pre-competitive coming together with other companies, I can imagine that's just really helpful to facilitate this entire movement forward.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say that up until now, sort of systemic change, long-term thinking, and all these kind of collaborative approaches and the mindset for deep transformation of how we do things has not really been part of the job description for senior decision makers in the food industry or anywhere else. And that's partly the reason we've ended up in the fix that we're in. And so in a way we can bring that, but we're also highly experienced in working with business. So we know what they need to work with in order to be able to make different decisions about how they organize their business, how they organize their value chains and so on. And so
Excellent.
yeah, so we bring together we can bring together industry stakeholders around a particular problem. But I think what's really important about the work that we do is that we deliberately also bring other perspectives in. So as well as not necessarily being equipped with long-term thinking or systems change tools, many in food industry are also don't really have the opportunity to engage with other perspectives on what change is needed, on what we think the food system needs to give to us all. And so we work very hard to bring different perspectives together within those collaborations in a way that can help generate new ideas, new thinking, new ways of working together to achieve a better future for everybody.
Nice. Well, there has been a lot of discussion in thinking for the future and even what's happening now, regenerative agriculture terminology. And I know that's one of the areas that you help companies focus on. I don't know if our audience, we hear different definitions out there for regenerative agriculture. What does that mean from a perspective of thinking about moving forward in the agriculture?
It's true. So, I mean, regenerative agriculture is a bit of a buzzword at the moment. There's a lot of work going on, and that's a good thing. It's a real spectrum. So there are, and there's no kind of like legally defined definition for now of what regenerative agriculture means. So depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer. And you could look at some of the bigger food industry players, such as, General Mills, even Walmart or Unilever and Nestle are all making big commitments to regenerative agriculture, but it probably means something different to them compared to, say, those traditionally in the deep green organic movement, for example. We work with that kind of variety of understandings and definitions and that diversity. And we think it's important not to get stuck on it, We have our own approach to what we think regenerative really means, and it's also part of our overall mission, not just our work in food. So for us, we deliberately emphasize the importance of including social outcomes in what might be meant by regenerative. So at the, if you like, the most light touch end of the spectrum, regenerative agriculture can be understood to include cover cropping and reducing the amount of tillage of fields and putting hedgerows back in and so on at farm level. So kind of the technical farming practices. We try to bring, again, a bigger picture kind of view on it and say truly regenerative agriculture needs to incorporate social, positive social outcomes, the regeneration of the economics of farming, because it's really difficult for it to be profitable for many farmers, and kind of thinking about the well-being and health of farmers, farm workers, and so on. And so we have a deliberately broad definition, which includes social justice, positive social outcomes, and we think the importance of recognizing that it's not just what happens at the farm, but it's the whole value chain. And in order to really scale up regenerative agriculture of all different types, we're going to need to rethink the business models and the whole value chain. And so we try and bring that to the work that we do on regenerative agriculture and support our partners in it to navigate all of that and see how they can work with those interconnections. And that's kind of a way of, that's in a way how we bring that holistic view of sustainability and of regenerative, is to not force, but invite and encourage our participants, our collaboration participants, to keep that broadness in mind and think about all the different things that might need to change to enable then farming practices to evolve, but they're not the only part of the puzzle that needs to shift, if you like.
Yeah, and I like that approach because you're being very accepting of what maybe a company comes to you with as far as their concept, but then you're also helping to reframe the narrative, which I know is something that Forum wants to do, help companies look outside of what they might be thinking right now to have that future thought and the other parameters that need to be considered moving forward.
That's right. So yeah, what we do is kind of a mixture perhaps of upskilling and informing people who are interested to understand more about regenerative agriculture, what it means, who's doing it, why do they need to do it. Others are kind of further along that journey, but need tools in order to convince perhaps decision makers in their business to support the things that they want to implement. And others are kind of maybe doing, making progress on their own implementation plans around increasing their support to regenerative agriculture, but really seeing that the barriers to their further progress lie beyond their own organization. That's where they're going to need to engage with others and influence more broadly, perhaps, in order to enable their own progress. So, you know, it could be that the policy isn't supportive. It could be that there are financial mechanisms that need to sort of be invented or be reoriented to help everybody in their efforts, wherever they are on the journey.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important because I think you spoke to me before about the mindset that a company has approaching this, or that the leadership has when approaching transformation and transition, that's really important, and to take that holistic view, and you're just walking alongside them with that, depending on how they engage with you, right?
Yes, and we work with our partners in lots of different ways. So some of them will just be involved in these collaborations, and we will guide them through a process, co-create it with them to meet their needs, but kind of bring the high level of ambition and the connections to other perspectives and solutions. Another area of work is then kind of digging into what regenerative might mean for a particular business or even a particular category. So one of the main principles of regenerative that I think many would agree on is that it's very context specific what it might mean. Whereas actually, if you like, since in kind of the post-Second World War period, we've ended up with a dominant agricultural system that is very focused on one size fits all, monocultures, large scale, one huge field full of the same crop, all the way through to a food system reliant on very small number of foods. So regenerative is much more context specific. We are saying you need to look at a particular place, a particular farm, a particular community to understand what regenerative might mean there. And so, for example, the work that we're doing currently with one significant retailer is to help them understand what regenerative means for one of their key categories. So an agricultural category, it's an important ingredient for products that they sell. They've made a commitment to get to a very regenerative place within a particular time frame, but they actually don't, but they're at the beginning, they don't then know what that really means. And so we're working with them and various technical partners to dig into the category and really figure out for that category and for that retailer, what would it mean for this supply chain to become regenerative and for us to confidently say, we've achieved it, this to us as a regenerative category, acknowledging that it might be different for other categories, but we're taking one significant area for them and really working together to understand what it means.
Well, and you know what? I really like that approach because I think some companies stop. They think that the challenge is too big, that the problem is too big to solve, and it's not broke. Let's not fix it. We'll just keep doing business the way we've been doing it. But with your approach of let's just take one, like for this large retailer example, and thanks for an example, that let's just take a look at, let's niche it down. We've got this one category, this one area. Let's solve it here and not try to, eat the whole elephant in one bite, so to speak. Let's get started. And you're helping them to be able to have the vision of a solvable problem and focus in on that. And then, once there's success there, that they can move into other areas.
That's right. I think we're hoping to generate a fairly replicable approach, even if the actual results are not necessarily the same for different categories or for different retailers or even for different markets. I think it's one really important element of this is exactly helping the partners, helping these food players to understand that business as usual isn't going to work for much longer. And I think it's becoming very quickly obvious to those, in food as well as other sectors, that firstly, actually, the current food system is not giving most of us what we really need from it. It's not that it's broken, it's just working towards the wrong goals. And what it really needs to do is make sure everybody gets to eat good food all of the time that's affordable, while those working to produce that food can make a decent living out of that, and we stop damaging and destroying the nature that we depend on to make the food. So I think it's becoming very clear that the current food system is effectively poorly designed and it needs new goals. So we do a lot of work to help people see that that is the case. Many of us are very protected. Senior decision makers in thriving food businesses generally are not struggling with food poverty, but I think we're increasingly seeing that actually the system could do a better job. So we do a lot of work around that. And once you've got that, what we do also is kind of helping to shift people's mindsets about what outcomes we need and how we get there. And that is, among other things, starting to see that, for example, regenerative agriculture, but other things too, they're not just an interesting, nice little project that you do in one part of your business or for one product. It's not necessarily about getting a good claim onto products that you can then use to grow that product or category with consumers. This is actually about ensuring a future viable business. This is about security of supply of key ingredients for a product or for a retailer, for example. It's about making sure the business can continue to do what it does, which is make money while providing useful products and services into the future. And increasingly, that is going to be difficult if we don't change how we farm, change how we organize our supply chains, and so on. So it's really shifting that mindset from maybe thinking this is one of those sustainability projects that someone's asking me to fund, or this is some sort of nice to have, or is this just a label we put on some products, to really understanding that regenerative agriculture and kind of restorative approaches to farming are going to be a fundamental, critical part of ensuring a viable future food system and businesses within that system that can continue to function. This is about decarbonizing supply chains. It's about making sure nature can do the stuff it does for free so that we can grow food and then transform it and sell it and eat it. It's about reducing risk across the value chain for the business and for sectors. And it's got to become business as usual versus one of those sustainability things we need to do. And that's really the critical shift that we support our partners to get their heads around for their decision makers. And then in terms of, that's why we talk about transition and transformation. We're going to need to rethink how we do business, how we pay for things in supply chains, what's profitable, who carries risk, and so on. So that's a really important part of it.
Wow. I think that kind of sums it up, Geraldine. That's a great series of statements there to really just put in a nice package what the mission is and why you're doing what you're doing. But in addition to that, before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add that you would like for our audience to know about you or Forum of the Future, or any additional thoughts?
Yes, I mean, so, we're in the US, UK, Europe, India, Southeast Asia, as I mentioned. We'd love to hear from anybody who kind of feels that what we've been discussing sort of strikes a chord, and, look at ways they can join our existing collaborations or perhaps get some support from us on the various things we've touched on. So, what is this regenerative agriculture thing? How do we do it? Where do we start? Where are the solutions? What's going to work for my organization? Absolutely kind of what we can explore. Particularly interested in hearing from food players who want to take that more integrated approach. So not just thinking of sort of, I've got my environmental targets over here. Oh, and actually I've got some social targets over there. We have lots of tools for tackling them together. And we do think that's where the most effective, impactful and cost-effective solutions lie, really, and approaches, because it's very expensive to do things in silos, whereas actually if we treat things in a more integrated way, we'll get to the right place faster, I think, more effectively. So, if people are wondering about how to join up the social impact things that they're doing with the environmental side of things, and, so we have lots of tools and frameworks to help people with that. And then really, we're interested in those kind of ambitious or wanting to be ambitious change makers in food across industry, across sectors, who perhaps need a bit of a sounding board with what they're trying to achieve, or anything through to a full sustainability strategy that really takes on all of these opportunities and challenges and ways to approach them. So yes, we always open for discussions, and we have multiple collaborations we can invite people to join. All of the collective insight we've built up with all of those kind of at the coalface of all this work, those that are actually training farmers, working in retail to try and understand how to engage consumers on all of this. We have a lot of insight to share, and as an educational nonprofit, very happy to share basically what we've learned and what we can do to help.
Well, thank you, Geraldine. Back to my introduction about the holistic approach. I mean, that's really what you want to help companies have, and you have lots of resources. Links will be in our show notes, so I encourage our audience to check those out. Geraldine, thank you so much for being with us, and I look forward to seeing what Forum of the Future, what impact you're able to have in the industry. And for those of us who are in our audience, please subscribe, give us a comment. If you enjoyed this interview, we answer you back, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, I'm Pam Linemiller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.